I just bought the entire orphanage where I grew up, but I didn't do it for the real estate. Hidden inside these decaying walls is a forged ledger that proves my identity was sold for a bribe. We are heading into the locked basement right now to unmask the elite family that paid to erase my existence. The rain hammered down like it was trying to wash away 23 years of lies as my truck crawled up the long, weed-choked driveway. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I could barely breathe. There it was, St. Agnes Children's Home, looking even more broken and haunted than I remembered. The roof sagged like an old man's shoulders, windows were shattered or boarded up, and thick ivy had swallowed the iron fences that once kept scared kids trapped inside. This place wasn't just bricks and mortar to me. It was the only home I'd ever known until they decided my bloodline was too dangerous to exist. I cut the engine and sat there for a long time, staring through the streaks of rain on the windshield. Every memory flooded back at once. The smell of burnt toast in the mornings, the squeak of rubber shoes on linoleum floors, the way the older kids would whisper at night about who their real parents might be. I was never one of them. I was the quiet kid in room 17 who stopped asking questions after they told me my parents died in a fiery car crash that conveniently left no records. If you're watching this, I know you feel it too. That nagging voice in the back of your mind wondering if your own story is real. Hit that like button hard if you've ever doubted your own history, and subscribe right now because this is going to be a long journey, and we're peeling back every single layer together. I grabbed my crowbar, flashlight, and camera rig and pushed open the heavy front doors. They screamed on rusted hinges, echoing down the dark hallway like a warning. The smell hit me instantly. Damp rot, moldy plaster, old antiseptic, and something deeper, like secrets fermenting for decades. My boots crunched over broken glass and fallen ceiling tiles as I swept the beam across the entrance hall. The old reception desk was still there, covered in dust so thick it looked like snow. I walked slowly down the main dormitory corridor, my flashlight dancing across faded murals of smiling cartoon animals that now looked sinister in the decay. Room 17. My room. I stopped and ran my fingers over the doorframe where I had scratched my height marks as a child. For foot 2 at age 8. Then the lines stopped abruptly. It was like someone had decided my growth, my story, my entire existence should freeze right there. Comment below right now. What's one childhood memory that still haunts you? Let me know I'm not alone in carrying these ghosts. And if this is already pulling at your heart, smash that like button. I kept exploring for hours that first day. The state records claimed this was a simple L-shaped building with basic dorms, a cafeteria, and offices. But as I moved through the administrative wing, I spotted it. An extra corridor hidden behind what looked like a storage area. The layout didn't match anything official. My skin prickled. I started documenting everything meticulously. Peeling wallpaper that revealed old wiring panels, floorboards that sounded hollow underneath, old notice boards with curling papers listing names of kids I once shared meals with. Flashbacks kept hitting me. I remembered lining up for vaccinations in this hallway, the cold pinch of the needle, the way the nurses would avoid eye contact when I asked about my file. I remembered winter nights when the heating barely worked and we'd huddle under thin blankets telling stories about imaginary families. I remembered the day I aged out at 18, handed a trash bag with my few belongings and a bus ticket to nowhere. By the time the sun dipped low and painted the decaying rooms in bloody orange light, I had mapped out the entire first floor. But I knew the real answers weren't up here. They were buried deeper. The next morning I returned with heavier tools. In the old director's office, behind a fake utility closet that had always felt too shallow, I found the wall. It took me over an hour of swinging the sledgehammer, dust choking my lungs, sweat pouring down my face, until the fake panel cracked open. Behind it stood a reinforced steel door with a heavy industrial padlock covered in cobwebs and grime. My hands were shaking as I cut through the lock with a hydraulic tool. The door groaned open like it hadn't moved in decades. Narrow concrete stairs led down into pure blackness. Cold, stale air rushed up, carrying the scent of old paper, ink, and forgotten sins. I descended step by careful step, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The basement was larger than I expected. Rows and rows of metal filing cabinets stretched into the shadows, many wrapped in thick plastic sheeting. Some drawers were labeled with years 1998 to 2005, right around my time here. I started opening them one by one, pulling out thick handwritten ledgers with yellowed pages. Most entries looked routine at first: food supplies, clothing donations, small church contributions. But then I found the section labeled Special Contributions. Large round sums in cash, dates matching child intakes, tiny coded symbols next to certain entries. A crown, a diamond, a stylized V, sometimes a lion. Detailed medical notes, blood types, even early DNA markers that shouldn't have existed back then. When I found my own record, child ID 472, my legs nearly buckled. A $250,000 transfer dated 3 days after my intake.
Crown-Symbol.
The handwritten note beside it read, "Full erasure protocol activated. Bloodline connection compromised. Maintain total cover. No future inquiries." I sat on the freezing concrete floor surrounded by piles of ledgers and read for hours, page after page. Dozens of other children with similar high-value entries. Some symbols repeated, suggesting repeat clients from the same powerful circles. I photographed everything, my camera flash lighting up the grim basement like lightning strikes. If you're feeling the anger build reading this like the video right now, how deep do you think this kind of corruption goes? Drop a comment with your honest thoughts. I read every single one. It took days of careful work to catalog the most important ledgers and cross-reference dates. Armed with copies and photos, I finally tracked down the man responsible. Former director Harlan Whitmore, now 81 years old, living in a surprisingly upscale house 20 miles away. I didn't warn him. I just knocked on his door one gray afternoon with a thick folder under my arm and my camera discreetly recording. When he opened the door and his eyes met mine, recognition hit him like a physical blow. His face went ghostly white. "You're one of the 472 boys, aren't you?" "That's right," I said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "And I own St. Agnes now." I found the basement. We sat at his kitchen table. I spread the ledgers out slowly, page by damning page. He tried every excuse in the book, claiming poor memory, saying it was a different era, insisting the board forced his hand, that he was just protecting the institution. His voice cracked more with every lie. I showed him the bank records, the transfers that funded his lake house upgrades in 2003, the retirement gifts that coincided with the largest special contributions. His hands began trembling so violently he had to clasp them together. After nearly an hour of pressure, the wall shattered completely. "There in a safety deposit box at First National on Maple," he whispered, defeated. "Box 319. The key is hidden in my old desk drawer at the nursing home. The combination, it's your intake number backwards." I didn't thank him. I simply gathered the evidence and left him sitting there, staring at the ruins of his conscience. What would you have said to the director if you were in my shoes? Be honest in the comments. If you're with me on this quest for truth, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. The safety deposit box delivered the final pieces. My original, unredacted birth certificate, full hospital records from the night I was born, and a sealed envelope containing DNA profiles taken shortly after my intake. I hired top forensic genealogists and private investigators. We worked around the clock cross-referencing the ledgers, DNA markers, sealed adoption files, and public family trees of prominent figures. The truth that emerged was colder and uglier than I had imagined. My biological mother was Eleanor Voss, sole heiress to the Voss media empire worth billions. My father was Senator Richard Harlan Voss, the polished political darling known for his family values platform and multiple presidential bids. They were both young and climbing fast when I was conceived. A pregnancy that could have destroyed his rising career and her family's carefully cultivated image. The cover-up was surgical and expensive. Shell companies moved the money. Officials were paid off. Records were altered at the hospital, the state level, and inside St. Agnes. They even created a fake death certificate for me in a neighboring state to close the file forever. For over 20 years they attended galas, gave interviews about family importance, and built their empire while I struggled through foster homes, wondering why I always felt like an outsider in my own life. Does learning this make your blood boil? Like this video if you're tired of the elite playing games with people's lives. Comment below. If you discovered your parents paid to erase you, would you confront them or walk away? The drive to the Voss family estate felt like entering another world. Massive wrought iron gates, manicured lawns that stretched forever, security cameras everywhere. I didn't hide. I pulled up to the intercom and stated my name and purpose clearly. After tense minutes and several phone calls, the gates opened. Eleanor Voss met me in the grand marble foyer. She was elegant, perfectly dressed, but her hands shook as she clutched a glass of water. Senator Voss stood behind her, his famous confident smile nowhere to be seen. We moved to their private library lined with leather-bound books and sat down for what became a raw 3.5-hour conversation. There were tears from her, long silences, carefully phrased regrets from him about political realities and protecting the family legacy. They spoke of the pressure they faced, the fear of scandal destroying everything their parents had built. I listened quietly, then finally spoke. You didn't just hide a pregnancy. You bought and sold a human being. You paid strangers to erase me so you could keep your perfect lives. The room fell silent. No grand apologies. Just the heavy weight of truth settling between us. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of the old orphanage with cameras rolling and made a public announcement. St. Agnes is being transformed into the Public Identity Archive, a place where every recovered ledger, document, and record will be digitized, preserved, and made accessible to anyone who grew up in the system searching for their roots. No more hidden files. No more identities for sale. This isn't the end of my story. It's the beginning of something much bigger. The family that tried to bury my existence is still powerful, but now the spotlight is on them, and it won't turn off. If this long journey touched something deep inside you, I need you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so we can keep uncovering truths together. Share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. And please, drop your own thoughts, experiences, or questions in the comments. I read them all and they fuel this mission. The walls of that old orphanage have finally spoken, and their voices are only getting louder.